absolutely genius. Russians fell for a smart Ukrainian death trap and started chaotically destroying their own forces. At the same time, there is a good progress in the east. Ukrainians entered a major city in the south, and now the road to the next key city is open. But more about all this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. It is back. So, a lot of crazy Z-Patriots in Russia, they started buying these carton or wooden or metallic imitations of the intercontinental ballistic missiles called Sarmat and driving around their cities, saying that, "Look, America, just let me fight against you and I will show you what a Russian man can do." And this guy who is driving around in this pretty depressing atmosphere is not the only one. Then we also have another one next to Burger King. I'm wondering how he is not considering himself a Western agent, taking picture with this fast food chain. And then also a guy who decided to do full package with flags, some pictures on the sides of his car, some additional attributes, weapons and everything like this to show that he is the real man. He is Tony Montana. And just let me know in the comments which one of these three mighty fighters you prefer to be sent on the front lines and try to actually fight in this war. They will not have too much chances, but let me know in the comments. Because statistically, these are the people who will do everything possible not to go to the actual military, and even military representatives themselves and soldiers, they make fun of these clowns. And speaking about statistics, 49.1% of you guys are still not subscribed. And I mean, finally we passed the point of 50%, but still the numbers are pretty huge. So come on, Josh, Matt, John, Steven, Artyom, Jeff, come on, I'm waiting for you all to subscribe to my channel, because I'm just trying my best to give you the best news possible. If you don't mind, please also don't forget to like this video, and if you want to see how I live outside of YouTube, you can follow me on Instagram, the link is down below. But okay, now let me give you a couple quick words about the Western military support to Ukraine, because something very interesting happened in the Mediterranean Sea, and then we'll go to the east of Ukraine and the south of the country. And so what basically happened in the Mediterranean Sea is that the biggest aircraft carrier, USS Gerald R. Ford, arrived to Turkish waters. This is obviously extremely close to the territory of Russia, and according to them the purpose of this visit is to train mutually with Turkey. And I mean, just looking at these pictures, this thing is massive. That's what she said. Besides that, according to the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksiy Reznikov, Ukraine might potentially start using F-16 fighter jets as early as already next spring. Because as of right now, Ukrainian pilots are already scheduled to be trained how to use these planes, including by the US military. And ultimately, when you thought that this was only the Western countries which were providing military vehicles to Ukraine, well, just take a look at this video. Yet here is another abandoned Russian tank T-73, which Ukrainians were like, well, let's just take it and use it against Russians. And this is exactly what they did. Right, and now as promised, let me give you a quick update from the east, because there is a very good development, and then we'll go to the south of Ukraine. But first of all, we just have to make a stop on the territory of Russia in Kursk, because recently approximately 16 Ukrainian drones were attacking one of Russian airfields. The targets were at least 4 Russian planes and bombers, also some radars and S-300 air defense systems. Reportedly, at least some of them were severely damaged. Next we go to the east of Ukraine, and first of all, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, as always, Russians and Ukrainians are daily engaged in combat activities along Kupiansk-Svatove-Kreminna front line, and as you can see from this map, reportedly Russians advanced a little bit closer to the Ukrainian positions. But of course, one of the most significant fighting in this area is happening still in Bakhmut, and Ukrainians, for example, as you can see from this video, also started using very effectively grenade launchers, eliminating several Russian soldiers at once. And also, recently, reportedly, there was yet another pretty big tank raid of Ukrainians against Russian positions in Bakhmut, as you can see from this video, and they were able to achieve pretty good progress, specifically in the south of this settlement. And honestly, over this weekend I found just so much footage, way more than I usually do, and I'm just only showing you a fraction of this on YouTube, because I mean, if you remember, my video got taken down because of just showing the plane remains, so you can only imagine what will happen if I show the actual combat footage. But don't worry, if you still want to see it, it is as always on my Patreon, link is down below, there's still 1 week of free access. And going back to Bakhmut area, as a result of all these hostilities, Ukrainians had a small success next to Klishchiivka and were able to take out Russian positions somewhere to the close city center, but Russians they keep bringing reinforcements to the city. But then as you go to the south, a major progress has been achieved to the south of Andriivka, as you can see from this map. And yes, just once again referring to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, it looks like that Russians even stopped their attempts to advance next to Kreminna, because reportedly they brought some of these forces to this Robotyne front line, and we will talk about why this might be an extremely bad decision by Russians very soon. And just in general, according to the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, last week alone, a total of 3,300 Russian soldiers were combined eliminated, taken as prisoners or wounded in this war. Ukrainians were also able to liberate 1 square kilometer near Bakhmut, and a total of 44 square kilometers of this settlement is already liberated since the beginning of Ukrainian counteroffensive. And additionally, and these are just mind-blowing numbers, once again in the last week alone, Ukrainians using simple, inexpensive drones were able to destroy a total of 192 pieces of Russian military equipment. Now let's quickly go to the south of Ukraine before talking about this genius trap by Ukrainians. And first of all, we have to make a stop in Kryvyi Rog, because recently there has been yet another attack by Russians, and reportedly the debris of a missile or drone, they fell and damaged the civilian infrastructure. But luckily, Ukrainians were able to intercept 4 out of 6 Russian missiles last day. Next we go across Dnipro river to Enerhodar, and as you can see right here is the footage of a Ukrainian drone also literally entering the building, the military barracks where reportedly Chechen Kadyrov soldiers were hiding. There are wounded, injured and eliminated. But wait, there is more, because as we go all the way down south to Berdyansk, local residents were able to report some very loud noises coming from one of the factories. Probably somebody was once again smoking in a very inappropriate place. And now let's once again refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that the main combat activities in the south are happening between Donetsk and Zaporozhye region, and also in the western Zaporozhye region. And at this point, it is official, confirmed by several Ukrainian military representatives, that Ukrainians were able to breach the first line of defense of Russians in Robotyne, the most complicated one, because this is exactly where Russians were planting most of their mines and erecting defense structures and fortifications. Well, Ukrainians breached them pretty quick. This information is also confirmed by Russian military correspondents, and then those Ukrainians fighting in this area, they're saying that now road to the next key city Novoprokopivka is open, and most likely the offensive of Ukrainians will be now a little bit more faster. And according to Anna Malyar, Robotyne itself is now liberated, and then for the confirmation of this we have this video. And guess what? Russians obviously panic. They were asking for reinforcements, and this is exactly what I was talking about a couple of minutes ago, that potentially some of Russian forces from Kreminna, they started going towards Robotyne. And looks like they were a little bit too late. And then the most interesting thing is that whenever Russians were chaotically retreating from Robotyne, those Russians behind them in the second line of defense, they started trying to put some artillery fire against Ukrainians. But because the retreat was so chaotic and spontaneous, reportedly they destroyed some of their own forces and even military vehicles. And all this information is also confirmed by this map, because as you can see right here, this is the liberation that Ukrainians were able to achieve in Robotyne area in less than a week. But as always, Ukrainians do not stop. They continue their liberating counteroffensive, with the next key cities on their way being Novoprokopivka to the south, and then another one, Verbove, to the southeast, and reportedly Russians are also so scared in Novoprokopivka that they even started retreating from this city as well, without actually Ukrainians entering the city itself. And well, it looks like that not only Russians were surprised with this advancement by Ukrainians, it was Ukrainians as well, because as soon as Russians left Novoprokopivka to the south of Robotyne, Ukrainians didn't even think for some reason to enter the settlements and just eliminate those few remaining Russians, because the next day, reportedly, Russians realized that they fall back, that they victoriously retreated way too early, and reportedly they came back, at least some of them, back to Novoprokopivka. And just once again, also most likely, some of the reinforcements either from Kherson or from the east of Ukraine or both, they also started arriving to the south of Robotyne, but just to be honest, I don't think that these are the soldiers who voluntarily returned to Novoprokopivka. Most likely this was, as always, the order from the higher military commandment. Because just think about it, bringing forces back to practically lost settlement, where Ukrainians already gained the momentum and they are liberating some territories already every single day, at this point this is pretty much suicidal. But I mean, honestly, when was the last time Russian generals cared about the lives of regular Russian soldiers, right? Because their main goal is to please Putin physically and mentally, and also to give him as many good news as possible, and it does not necessarily mean winning war. Because here we have it, Robotyne, Novoprokopivka. Ukrainians are advancing obviously to the north, and they're also advancing through the flanks, both western and the eastern flanks. Russians previously who retreated, they came back to Novoprokopivka, when Ukrainians are already pretty much kinda encircling them from three sides. So it's like literally, Russians are almost voluntarily entering the Ukrainian death trap. And since Russians right now, they do prioritize defending Novoprokopivka, it does show that they are very heavily concerned, even more about that the situation in Kherson and in the east of Ukraine, if they are ready to send their reinforcements. And this creates at least three more problems for the Russian forces. First of all, these convoys of reinforcements, they'll become much more vulnerable for Ukrainian long-range artillery and missile attacks, simply because they're not hiding in the trenches. The second problem is that the Kherson region and the east of Ukraine, specifically Crimea, will now become less defended, and still keep in mind, Ukrainians also operate in these areas as well. And thirdly is that by the time these reinforcements convoys reach Robotyne or Novoprokopivka, most likely it will be already too late. But I mean, all these are pretty good news for Ukrainians, it just couldn't get better for them, because yes, right here, Robotyne, Novoprokopivka. The next settlement on their way, which they're already targeting, is obviously Tokmak, one of the most significant transportational hubs for Russians, which they use to bring and rotate their reinforcements to such key cities such as Melitopol and Berdyansk. And obviously, as soon as Tokmak inevitably falls back to the hands of Ukrainians, the next goal will be to expand the liberation out alright to Melitopol, and using this highway go back south to Berdyansk. And if you've been watching my videos for quite some time, you already know that Melitopol is often called by some people as the key city to Crimea, because this is exactly where Russians stop to send their reinforcements, get some fuel, get some forces, weapons, ammunition, all this kind of stuff, every single time they rotate between Crimea and the rest of Ukraine. So, by taking back Melitopol, Ukrainians very much endangering the existence of beloved Putin's Crimea. Potentially they can separate the peninsula from the rest of occupied Ukraine and force Putin to talk. Because honestly, it looks like that he will do everything possible to protect Crimea, including surrendering some already occupied territories. And right now, we do see that Ukrainians are getting the momentum in the Zaporozhye front line. Tokmak is pretty much already can be visible in their binoculars. They will start marching and eventually liberate this settlement, with the next ultimate goal being Key Melitopol. And as Kirilla Budanov mentioned, probably this war will be over as fast as it started. So just please, if you don't want to miss any of these crucial updates, which might come very soon to us, just please subscribe to my channel. It only takes one click. The absolutely best way to support my work is through my Patreon. You can also become my channel member and unlock some channel perks, or simply use a PayPal link. Everything can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for attention, товарищи. Please follow me on Instagram. Beware there are scammers in the comments, and see you tomorrow.